Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that almost every thought you repeated to yourself for years had quietly shaped your life. Not just your decisions, not just your habits, but your energy, your confidence, your relationships, your opportunities, even the way people responded to you. Now imagine discovering this after spending years blaming luck, society, timing, family background, bad bosses, failed relationships, and cruel circumstances. That realization alone would shake most people. Because deep down, almost everyone has had moments where life felt unfair. You work hard but still feel invisible. You dream big but stay stuck in the same routine. You tell yourself you want happiness, yet somehow your mind keeps replaying fear, stress, jealousy, and doubt. And slowly, without noticing, your inner world becomes a prison. This is where the central idea behind The Secret begins. Not as magic, not as fantasy, but as a dangerous realization. Your mind is never silent. It is always broadcasting, always focusing, always emotionally reacting. And whatever dominates your inner world eventually starts influencing your outer world. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry sunshine inside them? Even during hard times, opportunities somehow find them. People trust them. Doors open for them. They walk into a room and the atmosphere changes. Then there are others who constantly expect disappointment. And strangely, disappointment keeps visiting them. One person sees rejection and says, maybe something better is coming. Another person sees rejection and says, nothing ever works for me. Same event, different meaning, different future. That difference is where the entire philosophy lives. Most people think life is controlled only by action, but action usually comes from emotion. And emotion usually comes from thought. A person who believes they are unlucky behaves differently from someone who believes life is working in their favor. One hesitates, the other moves. One expects humiliation, the other expects growth. One notices obstacles, the other notices opportunities. And over time, those small differences create completely different lives. This is why the most powerful battles in life are invisible. They happen inside the mind. Because before a person changes their world, they first change the story they repeat to themselves every day. Picture a young man sitting in a crowded train every morning. He hates his job. He complains constantly. He spends hours thinking about how unfair life is. Every conversation becomes negative. Every opportunity looks suspicious. He scrolls through social media comparing himself to others. He secretly believes success belongs to other people, not him. Now here's the scary part. He may never realize that his mind has become trained to search for proof that life is miserable. So even when something good appears, he ignores it. An idea? Too risky. A new connection? Probably fake. A chance to learn? Too difficult. He unconsciously rejects the very opportunities he claims to want. And this happens to millions of people. The human brain is like a filter. It notices whatever you repeatedly focus on. If you buy a red car, suddenly you start seeing red cars everywhere. Not because they magically appeared, but because your attention changed. Now imagine doing this with your entire life. If you constantly focus on scarcity, your mind searches for proof of scarcity. If you constantly focus on failure, your mind searches for proof of failure. If you constantly focus on fear, your body begins behaving as if danger is everywhere. But if you focus on growth, possibility, gratitude, love, confidence, and abundance, something shifts. Not instantly, not magically, but psychologically, emotionally, behaviorally. You begin carrying yourself differently, and people respond to that energy. This is something many people misunderstand. They hear ideas like attraction or manifestation and imagine the universe as a vending machine. They think simply wishing for money while lying in bed will change reality. But life doesn't reward empty fantasy. What changes reality is alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions begin moving in the same direction, your life becomes powerful. Most people live in contradiction. They say they want success but constantly think about failure. They say they want love but expect betrayal. They say they want peace but feed their minds chaos all day. Imagine planting seeds while secretly hoping they never grow. That's how many people live. A woman once dreamed of becoming a singer. She had talent, she had passion, but every time she imagined performing, another voice whispered inside her, "You're not good enough. People will judge you. You'll embarrass yourself." Eventually, she stopped trying, not because reality stopped her, but because fear became stronger than vision. The problem is, most people focus on what they don't want. They wake up stressed about bills. They constantly talk about problems. They expect disappointment. They replay painful memories daily. And without realizing it, their attention feeds those emotions. It becomes a cycle. Fear creates more fear. Negativity attracts more negativity. Not because life hates them, but because the mind strengthens whatever it repeatedly practices. Imagine planting seeds in a garden. Every thought is a seed. Some seeds grow confidence. Some grow anxiety. Some grow gratitude. Some grow bitterness. Now imagine watering those seeds every single day with emotion. Eventually, something grows. The scary part is that most people plant negative seeds unconsciously. They don't realize how often they say, "I'm unlucky. Nothing works for me. I'll never succeed." Those sentences sound harmless, but repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs shape identity. A person who constantly says, "I'm not confident," begins acting like someone who isn't confident. They avoid opportunities. They stay silent. They hesitate. And then life gives them proof. "See, I really am not confident." But the truth is, they created the evidence through the belief. Now here's where life gets interesting. The moment someone changes their inner story, their outer reality begins changing too. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually. Because a new belief creates new emotions. New emotions create new behaviors. New behaviors create new outcomes. And suddenly life starts moving in a different direction. Think about athletes before a competition. Many mentally rehearse victory before it happens. Why? Because the mind performs better when it already believes success is possible. Visualization is not about fantasy. It's mental preparation. When you repeatedly imagine yourself becoming stronger, calmer, more successful, your brain starts building familiarity with that identity. And what feels familiar becomes easier to act upon. But there's another side people rarely talk about. You cannot fake emotions forever. You can't whisper positive words while internally drowning in fear and resentment. The deeper secret is emotional alignment. Your thoughts and emotions must move together. That's why gratitude changes people so deeply. Gratitude shifts emotional state instantly. When someone genuinely appreciates what they already have, their energy changes. They stop living in constant lack. And strangely, life often begins giving them more reasons to feel grateful. Have you noticed how difficult it is to feel both gratitude and anger at the same time? Or gratitude and fear? That's because emotions compete for space. And whichever emotion dominates, shapes your perception of life. There's an old pattern many people live with. They postpone happiness. I'll be happy when I get the job, when I lose weight, when I move cities, when someone loves me. But years pass, and happiness keeps moving further away, because happiness was treated like a destination instead of a state of being. And ironically, people who learn to feel joy before achieving everything often attract better experiences into their lives. Because joyful people act differently. They become more creative, more attractive, more open, more courageous. Now let's talk about fear. Fear is one of the strongest broadcasting signals in human psychology. What you constantly fear, you mentally rehearse. And what you rehearse emotionally begins controlling your behavior. Someone terrified of rejection may avoid speaking honestly. Someone terrified of failure may never start. Someone terrified of heartbreak may never love fully. And then life becomes smaller. Not because of reality, but because of anticipation. Most people don't realize this. Your imagination is either building your future or destroying it. Every day, with every repeated mental picture. There's also something incredibly powerful about language. Pay attention to how people speak about themselves. I'm always tired. I'm bad with money. My life is a mess. At first, it sounds like casual conversation, but words reinforce identity. The mind listens carefully to repeated statements. That's why empowering language matters, not fake positivity, but intentional direction. Instead of saying, "My life is falling apart," imagine saying, "I'm learning how to rebuild." Same situation, different energy, different future, and perhaps one of the biggest misunderstandings about this entire philosophy is this. People think it means ignoring reality. It doesn't. Pain is real, loss is real, struggles are real, but your response to those experiences determines whether you remain trapped in them or rise beyond them. Two people can experience heartbreak. One becomes bitter forever. The other becomes wiser, stronger, more compassionate. Same pain. Different internal response. Life constantly mirrors your dominant emotional state. If you constantly feel powerless, you unconsciously give away your power. But when you start believing you can influence your future, something changes. You begin taking responsibility. And responsibility is powerful because it means your future is no longer random. There's a reason successful people protect their mindset so carefully. They know the world constantly feeds fear. News, social media, negative conversations, comparison. And if you absorb all of it without awareness, your mind becomes crowded with limitation. That's why intentional focus matters. You become what you repeatedly consume mentally. Imagine your mind like a radio frequency. Whatever station you tune into daily becomes your emotional environment. If you constantly tune into hopelessness, stress, anger, and fear, your life starts feeling heavy. But if you intentionally tune into growth, gratitude, vision, and possibility, your energy shifts, and energy changes behavior. One of the most dangerous habits is complaining. Complaining trains the brain to search for flaws constantly. Eventually, even beautiful moments feel empty because the mind has become addicted to negativity. Meanwhile, grateful people often experience more joy from simple things. A sunrise, a conversation, a quiet evening, because appreciation sharpens awareness of beauty. And here's something truly fascinating. People often receive opportunities they were emotionally prepared for, not because life plays favorites, but because preparation changes perception. A person expecting opportunities notices possibilities others ignore. A person expecting rejection notices signs of rejection everywhere. Your expectations filter reality. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and consciously deciding, "I will stop feeding fear." Not denying it, not suppressing it, but refusing to build a home inside it. Imagine redirecting your focus daily toward what you want to create instead of what you want to avoid. That single shift can slowly transform an entire life. There's also power in clarity. Vague desires create vague actions. Many people say, "I just want a better life." But what does that actually mean? What does your dream day look like? How do you want to feel? Who do you want to become? Clarity gives direction to the mind, and direction changes decisions. Think about a ship in the ocean. Without a destination, it drifts endlessly. The same thing happens in life. People drift because they never define where they truly want to go, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or financially. But once someone develops vision, life changes. Because vision creates emotional energy, and emotional energy fuels persistence. The world often teaches people to focus only on logic, but humans are emotional beings first. You can know exactly what to do, and still not do it if your emotional state is weak. That's why inner belief matters so much. Belief creates momentum. Have you ever noticed how some people seem lucky? Opportunities find them, connections appear, timing works out. From the outside, it looks magical, but often those people simply live in expectation instead of fear. They move differently. They say yes more often. They notice opportunities faster. They recover from setbacks quicker. Their mindset creates motion, and motion creates opportunity. Now, this doesn't mean you sit on a couch and magically attract millions. Action still matters. In fact, action is essential. But inspired action feels different from desperate action. Desperate action comes from fear and panic. Inspired action comes from belief and clarity. And people respond differently to those energies. You can feel it in conversations. One person desperately seeks validation. Another calmly believes in their value. Same words, different emotional signal, and humans constantly respond to emotional signals, even unconsciously. One of the biggest transformations happens when someone stops seeing themselves as a victim of life, because victimhood creates helplessness, but responsibility creates power. Not blame. Power. The power to choose new thoughts, new focus, new habits, new direction. And maybe the greatest secret of all is this: your external world often changes after your internal world changes, not before. That's why people who heal internally often experience better relationships. People who develop self-worth attract healthier connections. People who cultivate abundance mentally often begin making better financial decisions. Inner transformation shapes outer behavior, but patience matters. A seed does not become a tree overnight, and yet many people give up after a few days of positive thinking because they don't see immediate results. Real change is gradual. Your mind has patterns built over years. Fear patterns, doubt patterns, scarcity patterns. Replacing them requires repetition, consistency, awareness, and honestly, most people never even observe their own thoughts. They let the mind run automatically. But awareness changes everything. The moment you catch yourself thinking, "I'll never succeed," you gain the power to interrupt it, and that interruption matters. Because repeated interruptions slowly rewrite identity. Imagine speaking to yourself the way you would encourage someone you love deeply. Imagine replacing harsh inner criticism with guidance. Imagine believing your future can improve even when current circumstances feel difficult. That emotional shift alone changes how you show up every day. And here's the beautiful thing about hope. Hope creates movement. The moment someone believes change is possible, they begin acting differently, and different actions create different lives. There's a quiet tragedy happening everywhere. People unknowingly rehearse misery daily. They replay old pain, old betrayal, old embarrassment. Their past becomes mentally alive every single day, and eventually they feel emotionally trapped inside memories. But healing begins when someone stops worshiping painful memories and starts imagining a different future. Because your focus is creative, whatever you feed mentally grows stronger. That's true for fear. And it's true for possibility too. Now imagine your life 1 year from now if you truly mastered your focus. Imagine waking up feeling grateful instead of anxious. Imagine speaking about your future with excitement instead of fear. Imagine walking into opportunities believing you belong there. Imagine no longer shrinking yourself internally. Would your life change? Of course it would, because mindset changes behavior. Behavior changes outcomes. The greatest prison most people live inside is invisible. It's made of thoughts, limiting beliefs, fearful expectations, emotional conditioning. And the walls feel real because they've existed for so long. But the moment someone questions those thoughts, cracks begin appearing. You are not every thought you think. You are the observer of those thoughts. And once you realize that, you stop blindly obeying every fearful voice in your head. So many people spend years waiting for external permission to feel powerful. But power begins internally. The moment you decide, "My mind will no longer work against me," that's the beginning of transformation. And maybe that's the deepest lesson of all. Life responds differently when you stop living in survival mode and start living with intention. When you stop expecting disappointment and start preparing for possibility. When you stop speaking weakness into your future. When you stop shrinking your dreams because of current circumstances. Because your imagination is not useless, it's rehearsal. Your thoughts are not harmless. They become emotional patterns, and emotional patterns quietly shape your destiny. So guard your mind carefully. Protect your energy. Choose your focus intentionally. Speak about your future with belief, and remember this: the life you repeatedly imagine, emotionally believe in, and courageously move toward slowly begins moving toward you too. One day, years from now, you'll look back and realize something incredible. The biggest change in your life did not begin with money, or luck, or external success. It began the moment you changed the invisible conversation happening inside your mind. Because once that changed, everything else started changing too.